Have you ever experienced the confusion of someone pulling away just when you thought things were going great? One moment, they're fully engaged, texting you first, making plans, showing excitement in their voice. Then, out of nowhere, the energy shifts. The texts slow down, the calls become less frequent, and the warmth you once felt begins to fade. You start wondering, did I do something wrong? Did their feelings change? But what if I told you that this sudden distance isn't a sign of lost interest? That, in fact, the person who loves you the most might be ignoring you for a reason, one deeply rooted in human psychology. Welcome back to Mindful Stoicism, where we uncover the hidden truths behind relationships, attraction, and emotional control. Before you react or chase their attention, take a moment to understand this. Love is rarely straightforward. It doesn't always manifest as constant attention, endless affection, or immediate responses. Many believe that if someone truly cares, they will always be available. But human nature isn't that simple. Love is often intertwined with deep-seated fears, emotional defense mechanisms, and subconscious patterns developed over a lifetime. Sometimes, when emotions become too intense, people instinctively create distance. It's not that they don't care, it's that caring too much makes them feel vulnerable, out of control, or even afraid. They pull back as a way to protect themselves, even if it hurts you in the process. So, why does someone who loves you also ignore you? Is it a power play, a fear of intimacy, or something deeper? Stay with me, because once you truly understand this, you'll never feel the need to chase someone's attention again. Let's break it down step by step. 1. The fear of losing control. Love is one of the most intense emotions a person can experience. It has the power to elevate someone to the highest levels of joy, but it also carries the risk of deep emotional pain. For many people, falling in love feels like losing control over their own emotions, and that can be terrifying. When someone starts to develop strong feelings, they may instinctively pull away to regain a sense of emotional stability. This is especially true for individuals who have been hurt in the past. They've learned, either through personal experience or observation, that emotional vulnerability often leads to suffering. So, even if they love you deeply, they might suppress their emotions by creating distance. Ignoring you, then, becomes their way of re-establishing control. If they feel themselves getting too attached, they retreat, not because they don't care, but because they fear losing the independence they've worked so hard to maintain. This is particularly common in people who are highly independent, emotionally guarded, or have a history of heartbreak. They've built walls around their hearts to protect themselves from potential pain. The moment they realize they are falling too hard, they instinctively withdraw, hoping that distance will help them regain composure. Ironically, the more they love you, the stronger this fear can become. They might convince themselves that pulling away is the safest option, that ignoring you will somehow prevent them from getting hurt. But in doing so, they often create confusion and emotional distress for both you and themselves. Understanding this fear of losing control is crucial. Instead of reacting emotionally or chasing after them, the best response is to remain calm, centered, and patient. The more secure and composed you are, the more likely they are to feel safe enough to let their guard down 2. The psychological push-pull effect. Have you ever noticed that when you pull away from someone, they suddenly start chasing you? But when you show too much interest, they begin to withdraw. This isn't just coincidence. It's a well-documented psychological pattern known as the push-pull effect. At its core, the push-pull dynamic is about tension that keeps attraction alive. When someone feels too emotionally invested in you, they may instinctively push away to regain a sense of control. But the moment they sense you pulling back, their fear of losing you kicks in, and they start pursuing you again. It's an unconscious game of emotional tug-of-war. This dynamic often plays out in relationships where one person has a stronger fear of intimacy or abandonment. When things feel too secure, they panic and distance themselves, push. But as soon as they sense your withdrawal, they fear losing you and return with renewed effort, pull. Why does this happen? The human brain is wired to value what is scarce and uncertain. When something feels too easy to attain, it loses its perceived value. On the other hand, when someone senses they might lose something, their mind amplifies its importance. This is why people sometimes take love for granted when it's readily available, but crave it desperately when it seems out of reach. So, if someone who loves you is ignoring you, it might not mean they've lost interest. It could mean they're subconsciously testing the emotional balance of the relationship. The key to handling this? Don't react emotionally. Stay centered, maintain your self-respect, and resist the urge to chase. The moment you master emotional detachment, you take back control, making them the one who can't stop thinking about you. 3. The test of your value. When someone who loves you ignores you, it's not always about losing interest. It can be a subconscious test of your value. People, whether they realize in relationships, this plays out through moments of withdrawal. They step back to see if you'll chase, if you'll crumble, or if you'll remain composed and unbothered. Why? Because emotional strength is attractive. Someone who is desperate for attention or validation is seen as weak, while someone who remains calm and secure commands respect. If they ignore you and you immediately start texting repeatedly, questioning what went wrong, or seeking reassurance, you've failed the test. You've signaled that your emotional stability depends on their attention, and that makes you seem less valuable in their eyes. On the other hand, if they pull away and you continue living your life, unshaken and confident, it sends a powerful message. I am secure in myself. I do not beg for anyone's presence. That is what makes people reconsider their actions. They begin to wonder if they misjudged your worth, if they should be the one putting in more effort, and if they are at risk of losing you. This is why in Stoicism, emotional detachment and self-control are so powerful. Your reaction to their distance dictates whether they see you as a priority or an option. The moment you show that you don't need them, their attraction intensifies. They realize that you're not someone who can be manipulated through absence. You are someone they must actively earn. So the next time someone ignores you, don't react impulsively. Instead, take it as an opportunity to prove your value, not to them, but to yourself. 4. The need for emotional space. One of the most overlooked reasons why someone who loves you might ignore you is their need for emotional space. In today's world, where constant communication is expected, We often assume that love should mean being available 24/7. But that's not how deep, meaningful relationships work. In reality, even the most loving individuals sometimes need distance, not because they care less, but because they need time to process their emotions, recharge, and maintain their sense of self. Think of emotions like a fire. Too much wood at once can smother the flames, causing the fire to struggle for air. Love, too, needs breathing room. When someone pulls away, it's not always a sign that they are losing interest. It might just mean they need a moment to collect their thoughts, balance their emotions, or regain their personal stability. For some, emotional space is necessary for self-reflection. They might be deeply invested in you, but feel overwhelmed by their own feelings. Taking a step back allows them to evaluate their emotions without external pressure. This is especially true for individuals who are introverted, highly independent, or have experienced emotional trauma in the past. Ignoring someone, in this case, isn't about rejection. It's about self-preservation. And the worst thing you can do is panic or demand constant reassurance. The more secure you are within yourself, the more they will respect and appreciate your presence. So, if someone you care about starts pulling away, don't immediately assume the worst. Give them space. Let them breathe. If your connection is strong, they will come back on their own, often with a renewed sense of appreciation for you. True love isn't about constant closeness. It's about understanding when to lean in and when to step back. 5. The fear of rejection. Ironically, one of the biggest reasons someone who loves you may ignore you is their own fear of rejection. It sounds contradictory. Why would someone who has strong feelings for you distance themselves instead of embracing the connection? But human psychology is complex, and love often triggers deep-seated insecurities. For some people, expressing love openly feels like handing over a loaded weapon, because if their feelings aren't reciprocated with the same intensity, it could crush their self-esteem. They fear being seen as too invested, too vulnerable, or too easy to hurt. So, instead of risking outright rejection, they take a step back, convincing themselves that distance is safer than exposure. This fear is often rooted in past experiences. If they've been hurt before, whether by unrequited love, betrayal, or emotional neglect, they may subconsciously assume that history will repeat itself. Their mind tells them, if you get too close, you might lose them. If you show too much, they might take you for granted. So they create space, hoping that by withdrawing, they can protect themselves from emotional pain. Another aspect of this fear is overthinking. They might analyze every interaction, wondering if they're saying too much, texting too often, or appearing desperate. They become trapped in their own mental battlefield, choosing silence over vulnerability. But here's the paradox. Their distance often confuses and hurts you, making you question their feelings. In reality, their silence isn't about indifference, it's about self-preservation. The key to handling this isn't to chase or demand answers. Instead, remain centered. If their love is real, they will eventually overcome their fear. And if they don't, it's a sign that their emotional wounds are theirs to heal, not yours to fix. So, what should you do when someone who loves you ignores you? The answer is simple. Do not chase, do not panic, and do not take it personally. Instead, embrace the wisdom of Stoicism. Stay grounded, maintain self-respect, and understand that human emotions are complex. When you remain calm in the face of uncertainty, you become the one they cannot afford to lose. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about how much someone texts you or how often they call. It's about the depth of connection, the respect you command, and the balance you maintain. So, if they ignore you, let them. If it's real, they'll come back. And when they do, they'll realize that the person who remains composed is the one worth keeping. Now, tell me, have you ever experienced this? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful insights.